Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your friendly invitation to KIGO. It's a great pleasure for me to be here. And I also took with me two more members of my team of the neurology department of Frankfurt. This should be a positive sign to start collaboration in the future, and I'm really eager to discuss different scientific options with you. So therefore, my current presentation will first be about the thrombolysis update in 2018, and the second part of my talk actually will be done by Dr. Schaller from my center in order to propose a scientific trial which we may do together in the future. So first of all, congratulations for all your efforts you did in Egypt and in KIGO in particular so far by establishing all your stroke units and the stroke service, and by now being able to provide thrombolysis to many stroke patients. I mean, you really did a great development within the last couple of years. Congratulations to all of you for your efforts. And in this context, of course, we all know that IV TPA treatment with 0.9 milligram per kilogram is still the backbone of all stroke care. What I want to do now is to provide you with a few updates on studies which have been published either in paper form or at Congress meetings in 2018. So the first actually is the Wake Up study. You may know that, let's say a decade ago, scientific groups have started to evaluate whether MR techniques could be used to find out when the starting point of the stroke has been occurred. For example, if you look on that slide, you can see that the proportion of patients with a positive flare lesion on MRI increases along with longer time spans that have elapsed between stroke onset and the time point of the MRI. That means patients with positive flare lesions in the acute stroke MRI are more likely to have a time point of stroke onset beyond 4.5 hours. That means these techniques may be used to identify patients who have an unknown time point of stroke onset, to stratify them into patients which are more likely to have their stroke occur within the first 4.5 hours, and in patients beyond 4.5 hours. I give you those two examples. For example, here you can see a DWI flare mismatch patient. That means this patient is likely that the stroke has occurred within the first 4.5 hours because the flare lesion is still not visible in the acute MRI. In comparison to this patient, there is a DWI lesion, and this can also be seen in the flare MR imaging, and this means this patient might be stratified into stroke occurrence beyond 4.5 hours. Now, the Wake Up study has been performed and has been published this year in the New England Journal. Here, these MRI techniques were used in order to guide thrombolysis for stroke with unknown time point of symptom onset. And about 500 patients have been randomized, and you can see that most of the patients, the reason for the unknown time point of stroke onset was nighttime sleep in about 90%, and some other reasons for the remaining patients. if we now look for the primary endpoint in this study, we can see that more patients who were treated with TBA compared with placebo had a favorable outcome at 90 days. So this was a significant trial, which also translated into the distribution of the modified ranking scale between the TBA patient and the placebo patients. And regarding safety, we can see that a tendency for less patients having death or dependency at 90 days were present in the isoclassic group compared to the placebo group, and the tendency towards the occurrence of more death in the isoclassic group as compared to the placebo group was apparent. Regarding symptomatic intracerebral hemorrhage, some trends were found, of course, towards more symptomatic intracerebral hemorrhage occurring in the TBA treated group. So in a similar way, actually, most recently on the World Stroke Congress in Montreal, another trial was published in a similar background, which was the EXTEND trial. This was a multi-center controlled trial where patients have been recruited in Australia, Taiwan, and New Zealand. All of them had acute ischemic stroke, and all of them had symptom onset between 4.5 and 9 hours, and or wake-up situations. Patients who were subjected to thrombectomy were excluded, and also this cohort of stroke patients was randomized into those getting TBA and those getting placebo, and the primary outcome was modified ranking scale at 90 days. In this trial, actually, it was either possible to use MRI techniques, perfusion or diffusion mismatch, in order to define penumbra and ischemic core, or those advanced CT techniques could be used, so-called the rapid technology automatic imaging processing system, in order to define the ischemic core region. You can see that over here. This is defined according to several blood flow criteria, or the perfusion lesion, which is defined according to the time which elapsed after the injection of a certain tracer. And then actually the trial tried to identify those patients who had a mismatch between perfusion lesion and ischemic core, meaning that only those patients were thought further on treated whose perfusion lesion was at least 20% larger than the ischemic core, or in absolute numbers more than 10 milliliters larger than the ischemic core. So actually the trial was stopped after the results of the wake-up study have been published. Most of the patients had actually been applied those CT technologies, and the paper is not yet published, but here you can see the outcome data. The TBA patients treated after the selection by means of those imaging technologies had a 44% increased rate of a good outcome compared to the controls. And the recanalization rate was also significantly higher in the TBA group compared to the placebo group. Mortality was not significantly different between the groups, and the rate of symptomatic intracerebral hemorrhage was higher in the TBA group as compared to the placebo group. So in order to summarize those two studies, we can say that following similar results for patients who were treated with intra-arterial thrombectomy, there are also selection criteria based on CT were applied. We can now say that we may use advanced imaging techniques, MRI or CT, in order to identify stroke patients with unknown or at least with longer periods between last seen known and identification of the stroke, in order to select those patients for thrombolysis. And as we saw in the studies, if you use these techniques and treat those patients, we may get better outcome results. So the next step is actually I want to talk quickly about low-dose TPA, which is, as you know, common in Middle East countries, but in particular in Asian countries. In 2016, you all know that the Enchanted trial has been published, which first tried to show non-inferiority for the low dose, 0.6 alteplase dose compared to the standard dose. But this trial actually was negative, so the non-inferiority was not shown. This was the major result of the trial. And more recently, a sub-analysis, a secondary analysis of this trial has been published, which in particular focused on ethnicity. And I think this is pretty interesting to see that if patients are stratified into Asian and non-Asian, there is nevertheless no difference regarding a trend towards a better outcome if patients are treated with the standard dose compared to the low dose. And also on the hemorrhage side, there is basically also no difference regarding ethnicity for the somewhat lower risk of intracerebral hemorrhage in those patients treated with the lower dose compared with the standard dose. So that means this translates into the recommendation that basically ethnicity should not be a single argument for patients to be treated with 0.6 compared to 0.9 milligram. We need much more data on that, but so far actually decisions about the lower dose of alteplase should not only be based on patient ethnicity. So my last point is about tenecteplase. You all know the native recombinant tissue plasmid activator alteplase. Tenecteplase is modified at a few spots, like a derived TPA. It has a higher fibrin specificity and higher PII resistance, and most importantly, the half-life of this drug is much longer, so it can be used as a single dose. As you all know, there has been published last year a trial in Norway, mostly on the comparison of tenecteplase versus alteplase in acute ischemic stroke. Mostly patients without a proximal vessel inclusion have been included, and the primary outcome actually was similar between the two treatment groups. So this also accounted for the rate of intracerebral hemorrhages, so that the authors at this point actually concluded that tenecteplase in a dose of 0.4 milligram per kilogram have a similar safety and efficiency profile to alteplase in those patients with rather minor neurological deficits and no major intracranial vessel occlusion. But more recently, actually, the Extend IA tenecteplase trial has been published. These were all patients who were subjected to endovascular treatment, who were before this endovascular treatment randomized to receive either tenecteplase or alteplase, and you can see here that about 100 patients in the group were included. The site of vessel occlusion was distributed between the anterior and also the posterior circulation, and the primary endpoint actually was the status of the vessel at the initial angiographic assessment. So the reperfusion rate after the TPA treatment, but before the endovascular procedure. And you can see that the rate of substantial reperfusion was higher, significantly higher in the tenecteplase group as compared to the alteplase group. So the clinical endpoints and the secondary endpoints, so therefore I just present this graph here, but there was also a trend toward a better outcome in the tenecteplase group. So the conclusion of this paper actually is that using tenecteplase in comparison to alteplase resulted in a higher incidence of reperfusion and also a better functional outcome as a secondary endpoint in those ischemic stroke patients treated within 4.5 hours who were later on subjected to endovascular stroke therapy. So these were actually my updates. I guess that my subsequent speakers will now discuss several of these aspects more in detail. We will see how the field proceeds, particularly regarding tenecteplase. And actually, the last 5 or 10 minutes of my talk, I want to quickly announce our new international network, which is designed to support coordinated education and research in acute stroke. And I hope that it could be a kind of starting point to achieve a very good collaboration between German or European stroke centers and also stroke centers in Egypt and the Middle East regions. The primary target actually of our foundation is to make it possible that young talented neurologists get a structured education, but also to coordinate research, and in particularly research which could be uniquely performed in Middle East countries. Many studies are performed in the US and in Europe and so on, but I mean, you in particular, your country, your patients are in a way unique. They have a special risk factor profile, they have special needs and demands, and we hope that with using our foundation we can try to stimulate specific research in these populations. And I just want to give you a short example of that, and I will pass over to my colleague Dr. Schaller. He will go through a short protocol and suggest a project which might be suitable to be performed within the INSERAS network in the next couple of years.
So thank you, Professor Förch, and thank you for the invitation. I'm very happy to be able to talk about the work of my team and to give you a short impression of the idea that we have for one of the projects of the INSERAS program. I just have to figure out this tool. Oh. Perfect, like this. Okay, so this will be a randomized control multi-center study on the effect of a patient-oriented tool on therapy adherence in patients with symptomatic intracranial stenosis. So, as we know, intracranial stenosis is a common stroke subtype, especially in specific populations like in the Middle East and in Egypt. And we do know that it's way higher than in Europe, for example, and even higher than the prevalence of extracranial stenosis in Egypt. And we do know that we have to treat those patients because intracranial stenosis is associated with a high risk of stroke recurrence. So it is our duty to help those patients and to treat them well. We found a study on the prevalence of intracranial stenosis in Egypt from 2013, published in Stroke, which showed in 143 patients with a stroke syndrome that 2/3 of the patients with which to me as a European seems crazy high. So 67% of those patients had an intracranial stenosis, and of those 30% had a symptomatic stenosis, only 15% were asymptomatic. So this is a highly relevant disease, and we still don't know what the etiology is, why it is so high in Egypt. Maybe it's genetic reasons, maybe it has something to do with lifestyle, we don't know. But we do know that we can better the prognosis of the patients through optimization of the vascular risk factors. And we do know that the risk factor burden in several vascular diseases in Egypt is high and is getting higher. So obesity and the metabolic syndrome is growing in incidence here. And in another study it could be shown that, for example, for arterial hypertension, only 40% of the patients were even aware that they had hypertension. And of those patients with hypertension, only 24% were then treated, and only 8% of the patients, so not even a tenth of the patients, had a well-controlled blood pressure, all in all, which is not enough and which is something that can be optimized a lot. Same goes for diabetes, where about half of the patients didn't have a well-controlled blood sugar. So why is that, and how can we better this? We know from the Sampras trial from 2014 that everybody is familiar with that we have a low stroke and TIA recurrence rate in patients with intracranial stenosis. If we give dual antiplatelet therapy, so aspirin and clopidogrel for 3 months, we do intensive management of the vascular risk factors, and we do intend to give the patients advice on a massive change in their lifestyle and through a modification program. And this is where our study comes in. What the aim of this whole idea is to investigate if the recurrence rate of ischemic stroke or TIA due to those intracranial stenosis will be decreased through an adherence tool. And this adherence tool that we came up together is comprised of a pre-designed booklet that the patient has and has to fill out whether they took the tablets and the medication, whether they check their blood pressure, check their blood sugar, cease smoking, stop smoking, or maybe even just smoke some cigarettes less than the day before, and so on and so on. Plus, the doctors from the outpatient clinics will call the patients on a regular basis and tell them to check their blood pressure, check their blood sugar, and so on, and remind them. Hopefully we also get the relatives of the patients into the boat, so to say, to help and encourage the patients to do this. And we will have automated machine messages through WhatsApp on a regular basis that are sent to the patients with a take a medication, now it's time to take a clopidogrel, now it's time to check your blood pressure, did you do sports today, and so on. And this is what the sheet looks like exemplarily for 1 week. The first 3 months, the patient will do it once a week, and then after the 3rd month, every month. So the patient will fill out and just cross out, did I take my aspirin, did I take my clopidogrel, did I take the statin, and did I check my hypertension, and so on. And it will be filled out for every day. So short notice on the methods. This will be a prospective randomized-controlled trial, first a phase 2 trial. We intend to have 100 patients from Egypt with a recent history of TIA or non-disabling ischemic stroke, and of course symptomatic intracranial stenosis. Then we'll have 2 arms. One arm with the standard therapy, so aggressive medical therapy, like we know from the Sampras trial, and the other arm, the intervention arm, will have also the Sampras medication and the Sampras protocol, the new adherence tool that we intend to implement there. And these are the 2 arms. On top, the control, down there, the intervention. And you saw the weekly sheets that the patients have to fill out. And then the first follow-up visit in the outpatient clinic will be after 1 month, and then we're going to check with the patient, how is your blood sugar, how is your blood pressure, did you take a medication, are you still smoking, are you active in everyday life, and so on. Same will happen after 3 months, and after 6 months, and then to the end of the study. So this is what a follow-up visit might look like. This is just an example, an alpha version of this. Physician will sign with day and date, will put down the blood pressure of the patient, blood sugar. Did he take the medication concerning, depending on what he wrote down and what the patient says, and is there any adverse side effects that we should know of? And this is how the data is generated. The endpoints are, we have a primary endpoint that in this phase 2 study will be the therapy adherence after the study is done, after 6 months, and secondary endpoints is risk factor adjustment. So it's good that we did that. Patient takes the medication all the time, is more active, but does it help? Is the blood pressure better? Is the blood sugar better? Is the patient losing weight? So those are secondary endpoints, and of course ischemic strokes or TIA recurrence. Is it helping? Is it good that we do that? We don't know yet, but we hope so. And so I will close with a picture of the only skyline in Europe, at least I was told that, that's Frankfurt, and I am now open to questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Christian Vogt. And we open the floor for discussion because this is rather hot topics in ischemic stroke. I mean the extension of the time window, and the basis for this is rather new era. You can use thrombolysis It may extend up to 24 hours, for example. This is something which is could carry with it harmful effect for the brain. For that reason, what was the discussion for the opinion of our professor and our colleague?
In the comparative study, occurrence of physiological change. If you use symbolic therapy after the window, there is 60% and other side 1%. Is there increased communication when we use symbolic therapy? Why symbolic therapy?
You mean the rate of hemorrhage?
Yes.
Actually, yeah. Well, within those studies, it's actually this one is considered similarly to the other thrombolysis trials, which has been performed in the 3-hour or in the 4.5-hour time window. So overall, the field consider that if you use those advanced imaging selection modalities, the rate of symptomatic intracerebral hemorrhage is not higher, even in the extended time window, as compared to the data we know from the standard time windows.
Actually, I have to comment. The basis of the extension is mismatch, that the diffusion area is much larger than the dead diffusion weighted study, and this is the motivating factor to rescue the tissue. That is in the intermediate phase between death and physiologically dead. But how about the collateral? If we consider the collateral, this is an issue in the use of RTBA, or there is good collateral or open collateral. There's an issue with this and the use of medication.
Well, I mean, for the question of using the extended time windows in patients without proximal vessel occlusion, so let's say the standard cohorts for the wake-up trial and for the extend trial, I would say the collateral assessment is of course of pathophysiological importance. Patients who have very less collaterals, theologically this is a critical point, but regarding our assessment or the basement of the treatment decisions, I would say we can stick to those automatic tools just to check the perfusion and the correlation, to check the mismatch, and not to evaluate the situations of the collaterals in detail. But of course, pathophysiologically they are of relevance, and they are also more of relevance for treatment decisions for endovascular stroke treatment. But for those standard wake-up and extend cohorts, I would say it's okay to stick for the imaging criteria which I just presented.
Thank you very much. This is how many patients were screened? Also, another way, how many people do you think will be eligible, percentage from the people who will come after?
I think the amount of screened patients were about 2 to 3-fold higher as compared to those patients who were later on randomized. Yeah, so definitely a much higher number. Okay, any more questions?
Thank you very much. We appreciate your contribution to our conference. Now we open the open ceremony. May I call Professor Dr. Hani Arif, Professor Dr. Nabil,